Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new episode in our brand new show, Conversation Time with. I'm so excited to introduce to you today's guest, David Richards. David started his career in the US Marine Corps, where as an officer, he served in active duty for 15 years. After leaving the military, David joined corporate America, embarking on a promising career with Cisco, only to pack that in and pursue greater fulfillment as a yoga instructor, life coach, public speaker, and author. David is, in fact, the author of the international bestseller, Whiskey and Yoga. David is here today to talk to us about living with purpose and winning the game of life. So a big welcome to you, David, and I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Antoinette, thank you so much for having me. I couldn't be more excited to share with your audience. And I'm just grateful to be here. It's amazing how the world has brought us together. And I'm looking forward to having a great conversation.
I totally look forward to that too. And David, I have to kick off with a question about the contrast in your career, because reading up on your biography, I was struck by how vast and enriching the experience must have been of going from the military to business to yoga.
I think when you said the contrast makes for vast experience, I think I was thinking, or I was just really confused, because that's how I felt for such a big part of my life. And I grew up in the military. So we moved, and I was born in 1969, so a long time ago, well before the age of the internet, and well before something like this could happen on a daily basis now, which is phenomenal. So, and so growing up in the military, you move around a lot. And so you realize that friendships are transitory. And that was my takeaway. And so I regretted every time I had to leave someone, but at the same time, at the next place, I tried as hard as I could and fast as I could to make friends because I wanted to enjoy it while it was going to last. At the same time, at some point, moving through the military was an amazing journey. We spent 3 years in Japan from the late 70s into the early 80s. And to be exposed to another culture on a daily basis like that, at that young age, I was 10 years old, was so impressionable to me. To see the beauty of the Japanese culture, the history that's so rich compared to America, which is at that point just a couple hundred years old, was phenomenal. And I remember I had this, I don't know, just some inspiration, but I came back to the US and 99% of the kids didn't have that experience. And so they were doing American kid things. And I had this touch of Eastern philosophy and influence in me when I was a teenager. And so I'm trying to balance that with hormones and everything else. And I started meditating and I wrote. I was really successful as a writer in high school. I got some stuff published. I got national recognition for a short story, which I grew up in a small military base here in North Carolina. And to get national recognition was a big deal. And I didn't appreciate what that meant at that point. And so I didn't know what I was going to do after grade school. And so I wanted to go to college and university. And I knew the military was a path to do that. So I went into the Marines and then just got to a place where, as I got through my career, my dissatisfaction was arising. And I'd been married and divorced. And the fairy tale that I was writing myself, I couldn't quite get it to come together the way I thought it was supposed to. And I kept kind of running into these roadblocks and obstacles. And so finally, after 15 years, I realized I love serving my country. I love what it's brought for me and how it's developed me. But I want to know a life that doesn't involve the military because I've never had that. And so I got out in August of 2006. And actually, probably the day after I left active duty, I took my first yoga class. I finished class and I was like, what just happened? Like it was this awakening. It was awakening. It was the only way I could, I think I had the emotion of leaving the military and everything that I'd known for 30 something years, stepping into a world that I really didn't know and was much bigger than the military than I realized.
Now, it's interesting, David, you used the word awakening here. And I was wondering how difficult or easy the transition would have been from something as action-packed as the military and business to something like yoga. Did yoga come easily to you? Was it like second nature?
I've just told someone within the last 2 weeks that I've been a yoga instructor now for 14 years. And I remember my second or third year in, people used to say, well, you're not really a yogi until you've done it for 12 years. And it was weird because it was one of the few things, because yoga is it's a pretty free-spirited thing, but it was one of the weird things that I felt was like a rule almost, or kind of an entitlement. And what I've come to appreciate is it takes about that long to sort of really come into the idea of what's behind yoga and the sense of oneness with the universe and like what all that really means. And
the sense of oneness with the universe, is this what's led you to view life as a game? Because I noticed that in your writing and in your speaking, you tend to talk about the game of life. Why is life a game?
I say life is a game because you really have to, like, what are you playing for? Are you playing because you want to be a passenger on a cruise ship? Or are you playing because you want to captain your own ship? And even in this day and age where it's so easy to connect and we're sharing information on a scale that we've never been able to do before in history, at the end of the day, what really being present about what yoga has taught me is I want to be the captain of my ship every single day of my life, because that's where the adventure is. That's where the excitement is. And if you're kind of sitting back and holding back and thinking that I'm going to really put forward a lot of effort tomorrow or 2 weeks from now, you're missing the point. Life is meant to be lived every single day. And that's one of the big lessons I've really taken away from the pandemic is stop forecasting what my life is going to be. Like, I want a destination where I'm going to go, but I want to like live that destination today as close as possible.
Life is meant to be lived every single day. Amen to that. But David, you also say life is meant to be lived with purpose. What does that mean, living with purpose?
What that means is there are 7.5 billion people on this planet. Every person on this planet has a purpose that is unique to them. It's like the color of our iris. It's the fingerprint signature we have, but we have a purpose. And if you believe that there is more to life than just this physical world in which we interact, and there is this larger grand scheme, and certainly in what I've seen and experienced in my life, I'm solidly in the camp that, yes, there's more to life than just this material world that we call Earth or home or whatever. Then we want to find out what that purpose is. Like, that's what the journey is in life. And yes, if I go back to when I was 18 and feeling awkward as a late teenager who was sort of nerdy and had resentment, to 23 to being a Marine, leading Marines ashore in Somalia when I didn't know if I was going to get shot at, to going through my first marriage and divorce, going through my second marriage and divorce, and being like, I am like, where is this leading me? Because obviously something has gone seriously wrong with my plan, and it's not true. You just have to kind of vector out, what is my purpose? Because what that does, Antoinette, is when you start to hone in on what your purpose is as a unique human being on this planet, you start to bring focus into your life. And when you realize there's focus into your life, life does become a game, because now it's like, I want to represent myself as holistically and as authentically as possible, but I want to do that in every aspect of my life. I want to do it professionally. I want to do it personally. I want to do it spiritually. I want to do it with my health and well-being, with my family, with my investments, with my business, with my friends. And so that's how life becomes a game, because when you realize you are absolutely in control of your ship, whether you realize it or not, then that's where you can take action and say, you know what, I can take control of my life. I can take control of my situation. I can design a life that's going to be beautiful and fabulous, not just for me, but for people around me, because I'm going to make their lives better, because that's what ultimate fulfillment in our lives is.
Okay, let me see if I've got this right, David. What you're saying is we all come into this world with our own unique purpose, and we need to live intentionally, and we need to take ownership for our lives rather than walk blindly through life. However, I think many people, if you tell them, go and look for your life purpose, they wouldn't even know where to look. Like, they wouldn't know where to start in order to find the purpose in their life.
Absolutely, because and for me, I remember when I published my first book, Whiskey and Yoga, about finding your purpose in life. It starts with the question you asked. You have to ask yourself the question. If you don't ask yourself the question, what is my purpose in life? How do you ever expect to get an answer? Like, it's not going to, like, you're going to see signs, but if you haven't asked, what is my purpose? Like I wrote it down. I wrote down, what is my purpose in life? And then I came up with something. I did that in 2017. And then I wrote Whiskey and Yoga, and #1 international bestseller. Great. But that's absolutely an uphill journey, because I remember thinking, like, in 2017, the things that I wanted for my life, and it was daunting. It felt like they were so far away. And so then I ended a relationship, and for me, the pandemic was perfectly timed, because I ended a relationship in October of 2019, but it was the right way to end a relationship. Like, I had come clean about, like, my entire life, to my family, to the person that I hurt, and that we had a really good relationship. And doing that, I knew, was this catharsis for me, because now it was like, okay, I'm not jumping into another relationship so I can feel secure or safe. I'm going to deal with this whole situation. Yeah. And so I had published my second book. So excited.
Exciting indeed. Sorry, David, what's the name of your second book?
The second book is The Lighthouse Keeper, about mastering your mind. And I was getting deeper into meditation. I had some just mind-blowing experiences, because they weren't experiences that I was producing, they were experiences I was receiving. And that was really impactful and deep. And then I started working on my third book, and I am coming out of it and, like, so much more beautiful than I ever thought I could be, in terms of how I look at the world, how I feel about myself, and how I look at people. And then we go back to the contrast, and I've got tattoos with skulls on my arms. I love rock music. I love Spartan races as much as I love yoga, but I'm finding, like, the balance is coming together, and I'm like, okay, like, now I'm coming into my Zen moment, which I'm very grateful for.
I have to admit, David, when I saw what you do as part of the Spartan races, well, I was so impressed. But then I also wondered to what extent you would have been used to kind of like the training and the preparation from your military days, because it did all look very military-like to me.
Well, so in the military, you have different obstacle courses that you train over. And it can be anything where you have to climb over walls, or they'll have metal bars, almost like monkey bars when you were a kid, and you have to do those. But they're man-sized, they're adult-sized things. And they put them all together, and you do courses. And then sometimes they have courses where they'll have obstacles, but it's 3 miles, and you'll run for a half mile or for a kilometer or something, and there'll be an obstacle, and then there'll be some more. Well, someone took that idea from the military and said, let's turn it into something that people who aren't in the military can do. And it's just grown in popularity. And you go out, and so they have different distances. They have a 5K, they have a 10K, they have a half marathon. And then almost 2 years ago, friends of mine and I, we did a 50K, which...
it wasn't just 50K, it was 50K with many obstacles, right? I mean, how many obstacles were there?
It was 75 obstacles. Yeah. And it took us about 11 hours. And it was awful, because we started at 7 a.m., but it was cold, raining. And then by the time we finished, it was almost freezing and raining harder. Yeah. And it was just, but I think the reason why I do those things is because it's the mind-body connection. It's how mentally prepared can you get to do something like that? And what is your psychology as you go through it? Is it, I got to stop. I got to take a break, or I can't keep going. Or is it, okay, I got more energy now. What's coming up next? Okay, I'm ready for this. I'm going to do my best here. And that all comes down to this, the fundamental thing that I've come to appreciate after really researching this in some ways all my life, but certainly intensely over the last 5 or 6 years, is our thoughts really do create our reality. The pandemic to me was a big check on, okay, if you aren't taking time to focus on you, and you're just, as you said, sort of blindly going through life and waiting for this person to get your food, or waiting for this person to do this, or that person to do this, then you've kind of programmed yourself to just go through life without really experiencing it, without really enjoying it. And that's what I think the opportunity we all have, is to really take a step back and be like, okay, who am I? In this world that we're connected almost instantly with anyone we want, what can I offer to the world, and how do I start to express that?
Yes, but why don't we ask that question more often? Why don't we ask, who am I? Why is it that, like in the movie, that's our life, instead of being the producer, the director, the protagonist, we're often more like spectators?
I love the question. And I wrote an article sometime last year about making your life into a movie. And it's the same thing in life as a game. If you think that playing it safe in life is going to preserve your life another day, you're missing the point of life, because it isn't about like, let me see if I'm really careful how long I can make it through life. It's about, let me get dusty. Let me fall down. Let me make mistakes and give me the strength to get back up, because that's what life really is. And when you realize that's what it is, then yeah, you're going to go through some hard times. And when I look back at some of the stuff I wrote over the course of the pandemic, it was brutal. Because I mean, obviously I'm right, like, but at the same time, I got through all that stuff, and now I'm like, this story is going to be amazing. But you have to kind of do that to yourself, because that's how you grow. And when I was on this earlier podcast earlier in the week, you know, we talked about, in a way, growing is kind of dying, because you have to let go of your old self. Yeah. And when I look back at the person I used to be, in terms of, I ate fairly healthy before, but I would always allow myself a cheat day. And a cheat day would be where I'd grab something sweet, because I have an enormous sweet tooth, because we love sugar in the US. And so I would grab cupcakes with icing and just this decadent, and I would have 2 or 3 of those, and I feel pretty good about it. Well, during the pandemic, that became almost every day, let's have something sweet. But at some point, I'm like, okay, I don't want that anymore. And so am I willing to let go of that person to be a better version of myself and feel better about myself, look better, at least to myself again, have energy, sleep well, feel lighter, making it easier to exercise. Yeah, but I'll take those things. I'll play for that. Yeah. So, but I have to let go of that other part of me. And I think that's the piece that people are afraid to do, because you have to to live in the really present moment, you kind of have to surrender to what's unknown. And what we got used to before the pandemic was, we planned our lives out. Oh, in 3 months, we're going to do this. This is what my week looks like this week. And that's exactly what happened. And that's a boring movie if that's your life. And so now, working from home, being able to connect with people, hopefully at least spending some more time in reflection than we did before the pandemic, has given people an idea that, you know what, I have more to offer than just being a part of someone else's job production thing. And it's not that there's some great companies out there are, but at the same time, the real fire in life is giving what you have to offer to the world. And that's what I think the opportunity we all have today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Although it has to be said that it's not always going to be easy, right? I mean, living the life you want and offering to the world what you have to give does come with a price. And, you know, there'll be obstacles, there'll be hurdles, there'll be challenges, and not all of your experiences are going to be always positive.
Well, and I think that's what you come to realize is you can't hate the experiences that made you who you are. You have to be grateful for all of them, not just the ones that made you feel good, the ones that made you feel miserable, because ultimately you got through that. Yeah. I look back on the hardest times of my life, and they were miserable and I was agonized, but I got through them. And then as I kind of got closer to figuring out this balance between these sort of almost bipolar sides of me, where one side is like, I am deeply of the belief that there is a higher love, and that's why I haven't had success in relationships, because I was fully appreciating what that love entailed.
Sorry, David, when you say higher love, are you still talking about romantic love?
Well, it's funny you say that, because like I said, I wrote poetry. Like I can say as an American male, I had a muse. I've had multiple muses at my point where and what a muse is just someone who is, something about them just inspires you to write and come up with this creativity. But I can't say I never, but I the disproportion I felt between the weight between, if you say, spiritual love and romantic love. For me, at some point, I tipped the scales in favor of romantic love heavily. And it was just, and I think I kept trying harder because it was like, okay, if what Rumi says is true and you have to keep breaking your heart until it opens, clearly I hadn't done it yet. And then in this last relationship in October of 2019 that, ended, I did, because I was like, okay, finally this has happened. And now I get to write about it. What a blessing, because best part of my life just starting right now, 2021. So it's a celebration for me. And I'm so this is absolutely without question the best part of my life. My relationships are better. My health is better. My view on everything is better. So I'm so excited to share this story. And I'm working with a coach to get results on this thing to make sure, because at the same time, I am so confident about the story. It's also a little terrifying, because that's the beauty of artistic discovery, I guess. But it's good.
You just used the word terrifying, which leads me nicely to a question I had for you, David, about mastering our minds. So does mastering our minds ultimately come down to mastering our fears? Is this what mastering our minds comes down to?
And it also comes down to a question, and this is really something good to talk about, is where do you project your energy? Where do you spend your time and focus? Because if you're spending your time and focus on things that aren't really helping you get closer to your purpose, you're wasting your energy and you're wasting your time. And that's what comes back to focus and really getting clear on, who do I want to be? What do I want? Because if you ask the universe what you want, or you tell the universe what you want, you're going to get it, but you're going to get it in the form of, okay, this is who you have to be to get there. And that's the part that holds people back, because they're like, well, that's too big. I don't want to take that risk. Okay, well, then you obviously don't want that enough, because when you find something that you really want, you're going to go after it. You're like, I don't care what risk I have to take. I'm going to get this thing. Then you realize, okay, I'm onto something, and I'm going to finish this.
Yeah, and I feel like it's reflective of the times that we live in, that we can actually go after the things that we want to pursue, whereas previous generations in many ways couldn't even dream of living out their dreams.
It's so funny, because I feel like sometimes, Antoinette, people say, our kids are addicted to their phones, or we're addicted to technology. And in some ways we are, but also let's look at what technology has done for us. And I think, to go back to the information sharing and be able to have a intercontinental video call with someone, our kids are going through phases of development that took their parents years to go through. And they're doing it in a compressed time because of the availability of information. That's a really beautiful thing. At the same time, it's broadening, I think, our horizons to everybody's the same. We all want the same things. We all want to feel fulfilled. We all want to feel happy. It's not like there's a limit on happiness or joy or love on the planet. It's not like I say, well, in order for me to feel more love, you have to feel more less love. No, it doesn't work that way. If I can feel more love and create more love for people, then there's going to be more love in the world to feel. And when I understand the individuality and the commonality of our experience, it's easy. Okay, well, I can contribute what I can contribute, and that's the best I can do. But if I really embrace that and take the time, energy, and discipline to figure out what that really is, I can really impact people's lives. That's going to make them feel amazing. That's going to make me feel fulfilled. I'll take that for as long as I can. Absolutely.
What a great note to finish on, David. But before we let you go, where can our audience find out more about you?
Sure. So davidrichardsauthor.com and David Richards Author on Instagram.
Thank you so much, David, for being such a great guest and for a great conversation. I've really, really enjoyed chatting with you.
Antoinette, again, thank you so much for having me on. This has been an absolute pleasure. I love this, and I can't wait to share it with my audience.
Thank you, David. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. Make sure to check out David's website, his Instagram feed, and his books. I'll make sure to leave links to everything in the description box underneath or above this video. And join me next week for a new lesson in which we're going to look at some of the key words and expressions we heard in today's conversation. And join me again in 2 weeks' time for a new video podcast. Until then, I'll see you on the channel, on the page. Thanks again for watching, and see you soon. Bye, everyone.